We will now explore some additional tools as well as grouping and components in a slightly advanced version. Let's begin by once again moving our avatar off our origin point and creating our first square at 10 feet by 10 feet. We'll make it a cube, going up for 10 feet. Let's now move and copy this block down to the left. We'll triple click it, get our move tool, press Control, and as we click and release, we'll begin to move our block down. You'll notice in the bottom right hand corner that the length is moving the further I move to the left. Instead of just dropping this at a random distance, we're going to set it so that it's 10 feet further from the first cube. To do so, we'll start moving it down, and you'll notice that when you click the end of the first cube, you're at 10. Moving it further along, we'll enter in the number 20, and this will space it 20 feet apart. We'll do this one more time. You should now have three cubes that are spaced an equal distance apart. Our first cube, the new tool we want to introduce, is the arc tool. The arc tool is used to make circles and half arcs in a couple different ways. The one we're going to use is the two-sided arc tool located here. First thing we want to do is to find the midpoint of the top, remembering that the midpoint is the cyan color, and we'll say midpoint. Next, we'll find the midpoint of the line, the vertical line of our square, and when you get to it, you'll notice it will be snap and tell you that you have a tangent to the edge. Let's click again, and now you can see that our arc can move up and can move down. If I zoom in, I'm just going to give a slight arc. You don't want to go too far outside, otherwise it won't work properly. Just about to where it says tangent. Now we have an arc, and we can take our push-pull tool and cut away that half of the block. We can do the same thing to the other side. Coming up until we find our tangent, and pushing across. Also, if we don't like this line up here and we want to make this smooth, we could right click on the line itself and just say soften, and that line will go away, giving us a nice smooth top. And that's the arc tool. The next tool we'll use is called the follow me tool. The follow me tool allows us to take away material around the entire selected face of an object. Let's grab our arc tool once again, and this time move a little bit further in so that we're not exactly on the midpoint. I'll click again and then slowly move in until I get my tangent edge. Now, the way the follow me tool works is that we're going to select the face that we want to cut away from. So if we click this face here, we are going to then take this edge and wrap it all the way around, deleting the material in the path. Our follow me tool is over here. We can click and wrap all the way around, getting an edge that looks like that. The follow me tool can work in many different ways. We can use different types of designs, simple in the beginning and then more complicated as we go along. Take a moment and design a slightly more detailed profile that will be used to wrap. We'll then select our top, press our follow me tool, and wrap around. You can see some geometric inconsistencies here with our arc tool, so you want to be careful that your arc isn't too far down. In this case, we'll just leave it for now. So we have three different shapes using the arc and follow me tool. With these three blocks complete, we'll come a little bit further down the line, and with our rectangle tool, we'll carefully infer down from the point where we have. We'll pull up for 10 by 10 and push pull using our P shortcut for another 10. And now this is just a little too close to this block, so let's again once move this down copy it, and let's move it 20 feet from its current location. Now, the block we want to work with here, we're going to do something called grouping. We've already shown that we can edit a particular block as such. Measurements really don't matter, you should just get it approximate. And we can even color this block using our paint bucket tool. You'll have a little materials window that pops up, and you'll be able to choose from an array of colors. Choose a light color and color some of the edges as you choose. When you're done coloring, if the palette is in your way, you can always click on the materials window and it'll collapse the window, but keep it open for use later. In our previous grouping windows, we know that we can triple click this group or triple click this object and make it a group. When it is a group, you can no longer change any of the attributes of it. For example, if we draw on the side here, we cannot push-pull into it. It will not cut out. What you're seeing is this rectangle going through it, but it's not actually changing the block that we've created. We can illustrate this by simply moving it away, and you'll notice that other block is there. Escape out and Control Z. Because this block is now locked together, we are able to stack it, and then once stacked, we can also move it around without worrying about it affecting the other objects. But now, let's say for example that you wanted to change one of these groups after you already made it. This is very easy to do. All we have to do is get our select tool and go into one of the blocks and double click it. You'll notice now that it's double clicked, all of the other objects are phased out. There is an edit box around the block that we've created, and once that is done, this block will act like any other block, enabling us to draw on it however we wish. It will act completely normal, as would a block that is not grouped. If we click out of edit mode, you'll notice that now the block cannot be changed. This is important as we want multiple blocks to be used without them interfering with one another, but we want the ability to change them if we need to down the road. Now that we have our three groups, let's say we wanted to keep these three blocks put together in the same orientation they are now, but when we move them, we don't want to move them individually, we want to move them all at the same time. We can accomplish this by taking these three individual groups and locking them together as a larger group. To do so, you must select all three groups. You can either drag a box around all three and watch them highlight, or use the Shift key and one by one select each one so that they're highlighted. And now, just like we did before, we can say make it a group. You'll notice now that there's a box around all three of them, not just one. And if you go to move them now, they should all move as one, giving us the ability to now stack multiple groups at one time, making sure you snap to our edges. Now, can we change these groups? Absolutely. Let's go back to our single block of three. This group has three blocks in it. If I double click, I'll go into edit mode, and you'll notice everything else grays away. Now, we still cannot draw or change these blocks because these blocks are locked and still are their own group. The only thing we can change now is we can change the way they are aligned to each other, because this larger group just locked their position. If we would like to change the actual block itself, we can double click and then edit or change the blocks however we like. It's important to know what objects are in which group so as not to get confused. We can click out, and here's our 3. If you need to ungroup your blocks for any reason, you can simply right click and explode the group. Now the larger group went away, but each individual block is still a group. Another tool we can use is called the rotate tool. Let's drag this block slowly away, and the rotate tool will allow us to turn this orientation of this block along the 3 axes. This will be easier because this block is already a group and it's all locked together. If we were rotating something that wasn't already locked together, we would have to make sure that we selected all the sides at the same time. Let's get our rotate tool, and you'll see that as we come over we have what looks like a protractor with 3 different colors. Each color represents a different angle or a different direction in which we can rotate. To rotate any object, you must first click on the face that you want to rotate. If I want to rotate this face, I'll click 1 time, which will set the protractor on the top face. Next, you want to move around until you see either a green, a red, or a blue line, depending on which way you're trying to rotate. Once you're locked onto this line, you click for a second time, and now you can begin to change the orientation. If you look down here in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see angles, the angle to which you can change it. So you can move it, or you can set it at whatever angle you want. So if I wanted to take the front, which was here, and just slightly turn it this way, you'll notice in the bottom right hand angle it says 35. I'm going to press 45 degrees and it rotates. Rotate your block along the blue axis for 45 degrees. Next, we'll go up here to the block that is not grouped. So let's group it back together. If we don't, and we try to rotate, and all the faces aren't selected, you'll get something that looks like this. So let's make sure it's all grouped together, and just move it out a little bit. With our rotate tool, we're now going to select this face, 1 click, 2nd click for the green line, and our 3rd click to move it around. This time I'll select 90 degrees and press enter. The last face would be the green face. 1 click, 2 clicks, oops, make sure it's selected. 1 click, 2 clicks, and 3 clicks. We'll do this one at 45 again too. Rotating your 3 blocks like that works with any other objects, lines, squares, in similar manners. Let's take a moment and just move our blocks up and over, and you can kind of infer them just above the other ones, just so they're out of the way, but we want to keep them there so we can see them later on. By orbiting around, you can get them in a position just slightly out of the way. Like that is fine. The last thing we want to see is a component. Components are very similar to groups and act the same way with 1 key difference. I'm going to take the block that I have right here. I'm going to move it out a little bit. And I'm going to make this block a component. It's made into a component the exact same way you would make a group. You have to right click and now say make it a component. One difference is here it's going to ask you to name it. If you have multiple components in a drawing, you can name it, or just get in a habit of naming to keep things organized. I'll just name this block 1. Now that the block is made, all the same properties that a grouped block would have are the same. I cannot draw on it. I cannot do anything to it. Now, let's see if you can take this block and create an offset 1 foot on this side and a circle in the center of this side at 1 foot. Again, a 1 foot offset for a on this side and a 1 foot circle in the middle here. Now that I have my offset in my circle, the next thing we have to do is push each one in for 1 foot. How do you do this? Well, you got to make sure that you are going into edit mode of the component by double clicking and then moving it back for 1 foot and another foot. And let's give it some color as well. I'm actually going to select the entire object, color the entire object, and then go back and just change a couple faces one at a time after there. You can do the same. When I'm all finished, you should have a colored component block that looks something like this. Now, let's copy this component and make ourselves a nice pyramid like we did before. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to move it 10 feet over. I'm going to copy it again. Move another 10 feet over. Oh, I'm sorry, 20 feet over, giving you a 10-foot distance in between. And then I'll take them and I'll stack them. So you should have something that looks right along this lines. With that being said, we will now see what the difference between components and groups are. In this case, we made one block of component and then we copied it and used it multiple times. But what if we didn't like one of the blocks was the wrong color or wrong size or anything along those lines? Components give us the ability to change one block, and in doing so we'll change all the other components that were made from that block. You can see each one is a component, so let's go into edit mode just like we would a group by double clicking. And you'll notice now that the other ones are grayed out, but the difference is if you select one of those faces, they will all highlight. Let's take our offset tool and give ourselves another 1 foot offset and another 1 foot offset. You'll notice that all the other component blocks that were copied from this one, 1 foot back and 2 feet back, have now reacted the exact same way. This is true no matter if you add to it, you subtract to it, or you change any type of color. This makes components a very powerful tool when using SketchUp. You can also then group all of them together by selecting them and saying make a group. Now you have one group made up of 6 blocks that are components. You can then move these together separately, and no matter how many you make, you will always be able to change each one at the same time by just changing one. It also does not matter which component you change. As long as they were changed, as long as it's a copy of the initial one, you can go into the group, into the component, and no matter what, all of the other components that were made will be changed. If you've not already done so, see if you can get some type of array like you see here with a multitude of colors, making sure that they all change at the exact same time and that you have components that are grouped into 6 individual blocks.